Hi, I'm Larry Norrie, inventor of Turbo Graphix. This video will show you how easy it is to install the plugin and get started converting 2D documents into 3D surfaces. To get started, just double-click the installer you downloaded from the Turbo Graphix website. Then simply follow the prompts, making sure you select the correct version of Maya installed on your machine. Okay, once Turbo Graphix has been installed, just go ahead and start up Maya. And from there, we're going to load the plugin for the first time. To do so, simply open up the Window menu, go to Settings Preferences, and then the Plugin Manager. In the Plugin Managers, just scroll to the bottom and you should see the Turbo Graphix 2 plugins. Just load any one of them and they'll both load up. Put them on auto load, so next time you start Maya, they'll automatically be there. Once you've loaded the 2 plugins, you should see the Turbo Graphix main menu. And from here you can access nearly everything that Turbo Graphix can do. Okay, in this next section, I'm going to be taking this Photoshop document and I'm going to be transferring it over to Maya using Turbo Graphix. You'll notice the document is just 3 different layers, a little hand, a big hand, and a clock face. There's 2 ways we can bring this into Maya. Either through this script that you can generate with Mel, or you can use the Turbo Graphix GUI to just load the layers in directly, which is what we'll be doing in this example. First, launch the GUI, click the Add button or the green plus sign, and navigate to that Photoshop file. Okay. When you load it up, it's going to ask you if you want to extract the layers directly. Just say yes. Then type in the layer names, making sure that your spelling matches exactly, or the capitalization matches exactly. Now, if you didn't want to type in these layer names, then the script I told you about earlier would help you avoid doing this. Okay, in this next part, I'm just going to use the different Turbo Graphix tools to set the pivot locations for this clock, and the pivot locations are just where the different layers will rotate about once they're imported to Maya. So obviously for the clock hands, I would want to put the pivot points at the center of the clock, and that's going to make it so when I rotate the hands, they're going to rotate about the center of the clock. Once you've got everything set up the way you want it, you can export your layers to Maya. To export your layers to Maya, just either click the Convert Images to Optimize Textures and Geometry button, or click the Create Photoshop Object DAG Object from Layers. And generally people are going to want to use the Photoshop workflow commands, because these are far more flexible than the Optimize Geometry command. So if you want to update your object at any later point, you're definitely going to want to use the Photoshop commands. Alright, when you create your Photoshop object, you give it a name and potentially change the build settings for it. Build settings just control what the output texture format is, the maximum size of textures, and a variety of other toggleable controls that change how an object is converted into 3D. Okay, so once you hit apply, you're going to get your Photoshop object right there in Maya. Notice the red wireframe. This is how you can distinguish a Turbo Graphix Photoshop object from other regular objects in your scene. So, if you turn on texturing and lighting, then you'll see the object appear just as it did in Turbo Graphix. Now, what's different than this object than some regular old texture is we can go ahead and select each layer individually. Not only that, but each layer is going to be pivoted according to the pivot location you selected earlier. So you can animate the surfaces however you want. Now to save time, I already have a clock that I've animated with the pivots. So in this way, by pressing play, we can show you how you could just simply animate the clock hands, and now you have a fully animated 2D object here in Maya from what used to be just a Photoshop object. Now, the difference between using an optimized output and the Photoshop object is that the Photoshop object can be updated at a later date. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here and go to the clock, and I'm going to go ahead and modify the clock face. So once you've made your changes, go ahead and save your Photoshop document. Go over into Maya, select the surface you want to update, go to the Turbo Graphix menu, and choose Update Rebuild Selected Photoshop DAG Objects. And that's going to go ahead and go through and resource the data and rebuild it so it's grafted into the proper place in Maya. Okay, that pretty much covers the basics of Turbo Graphix. You should know all you really need to know to get started importing and animating basic 2D objects.